strong.
Chapter 111, Sharp. On the Fenghua Terrace, there were many old people wearing Kangai Academy costumes, all standing at the forefront of the Fenghua Terrace and divided into different areas. Then, they placed the pointers they held in their hands on the Fenghua Terrace and placed them there. The names engraved on the markers represent the list of all the strong people participating in the Fenghua banquet. If there are more than 10,000 markers, it means that more than 10,000 people will participate in the Fenghua banquet. Difficult. All of these elders were powerful people in the sky, they were so tall that they could almost never forget them. Wang Teng, Zhuo Fei, Li Kashu. At this time, the old people began to shout names, and those who were called to them fell from the air, landed on the Fenghua platform, or walked in the air, or beast it sent, or jumped straight down, causing Fenghuatai to shake it. With 100 bookmarks removed, it meant that 100 people were called by their names, and soon, 100 people appeared on the Fenghua platform. Fenghuatai is so spacious that it can easily accommodate hundreds of people, and everyone stands in a different direction and looks very relaxed. Moreover, the cultivation of these 100 people is a 6-star glory state, which is also the minimum allowed level of the Fenghua banquet. No matter how low, there is no need to participate in the Fenghua banquet. At most the three of you can only continue to participate in the next round. Of course, there may not be one. So, start showing yourself now. Remember, if you lose, you can't continue attacking after someone confesses. Don't hurt your life, said an elder from Kangai Academy. There were too many people participating in the Fenghua party. Therefore, you must immediately choose the best people in front and put them together in the same environment. This is a bit more fair, and allows those who are really good to stand out, at least not eliminated from the front. Suddenly, on the Fenghua platform, the aura raged and became extremely angry. The mage immediately distanced himself from the others, while the martial arts practitioners looked for opportunities. Immediately, someone launched an attack on the people around them. Combat, shoot immediately, fire instantly. In the empty space and on the ground, countless eyes fell on the Fenghua platform, and Yi Fuxian looked at it seriously. There are no weaklings who are qualified to participate in the Fenghua banquet. Many of them have shown their talent in martial arts, and others have gradually revealed the talents of their multi-attribute magicians. Of course, there were also many talented magicians. The fierce battle is very fierce. The big fight, even if some people are relatively strong, are surrounded and knocked down. Such a fight is very well tested. If they weren't strong, they would definitely reach the end unless they had an absolute advantage. However, after all, it was only the battle of the 6-star glory realm. Many people are not interested. The geniuses with high voices are generally above the 8-star glory. Under the 8-star glory world, it is almost impossible to get the name of the emperor. After the battle of the first group of strongmen ended, the elders of Kangai Academy announced that nothing had passed and all were eliminated, even the final victor. The lower the level of people, the more they need to show a stronger talent, in order to keep going down. Everyone quietly said. Subsequently, another 100 people were named, and the chaotic war continued. Not too many people participated in the battles of the 6-star glory world. There weren't thousands of them. After it was all over, the elders of the Kangai Academy started to name the people of the 7-star glory world. In the world of 7-star glory, there are still some people who are more expected, and the battle is definitely much more violent and fierce. Finally, among a group of strong people, the name of the rest of his life was called, and Yi Fuxian personally sent him down. But at the Fenghua banquet, the name of the rest of his life is not noticed at all. No one knows who he is or how strong he is, but he is a little burly. Among the group of strong people who had been with Fenghuatai for the rest of their lives, one person had attracted a lot of attention. The Beast Sect, Yun Dai, Tianjia's peerless character. He is less than 17 years old, and he is already a 7-star, but he is a beast trainer, born close to the monster, and can let the monster obey him. Is it to a magician a destiny? Yun Dai's complexion was dark and he was not big, but there was a very wild breath on his body. As soon as he entered the stage, he was attracted by many people. This young man with only 7 stars in the world of glory was known as a person who was qualified to be named by the Son of Heaven. These people are out of luck, even with Yundi. 7-star glory kingdom, it is not good to meet anyone, meet Yundi. Many people say. When Yi Fuxian heard the discussions of the people around him, he knew what kind of character Yun Dai was. After glancing at the rest of his life, a smile appeared on his face. In the first battle of my life, is there a character with a strong voice to stand out? Good luck. Except for Yi Fuxian and Hua Xiaoyu, maybe only Ken Chia of Kangai Academy knows the rest of his life. He secretly shook his head and was on the same battlefield as Yundi, for fear of stopping the round. And NBSP, on the Fenghua platform, everyone's attention fell on Yundi's body. I saw the leaf in Yundi's mouth, and then played with it. The sound is a bit loud, but there's a lot that's missing. The monsters became bead, the strong men mount in the void. Oh, the noble monster even left his master and went towards Yundi. The monster masters are naturally the people participating in the Fenghua party, and some of them fall into the air. He didn't practice wind-type spells, so he came by the monster, but he was controlled by another. Not only him, but many people immediately had the same experience. All the birds and monsters under the French Empire all left their masters and headed for Yundi. Hands on. Many strong men ran towards Yundi, even preparing to join him to face him. Even though he might still fail, he had hope after defeating Yundi. But at this moment, a terrifying savage wave broke out on the Fenghua platform. Dozens of them were raging, and many of them were equivalent to the cultivation of the top level of the noble world. With so many monsters colliding and attacking together, one impact fell. Many people saw this scene silent, and Tianzi's eyes fell on Yundi, with a sense of appreciation. Not long after, almost everyone on the Fenghua platform fell, and those who did not fall also retreated from the battlefield to admit defeat. This directly summoned dozens of monsters to come. How could they fight? Sure enough, there's no tension. Many people smile, a little sympathy and a lot of Yundi strength. Yundai also dropped a leaf to stop playing, and the monsters were still circling around the body and not leaving. It was very strange. But at this moment, Yundi saw another person standing there, as if he had not moved from beginning to end. You're not admitting defeat? Yundi asked, staring at the burly figure. Thank you for helping me clean up these people. The rest of his life thanked him, and his words left everyone in the void stunned. He thanks Yundi for helping him clean up those people. Yi Fuxian blinked, and the rest of his life had really changed too much since he went out with her. It does not matter. Yundai was also stunned, then grinned, continued to pick up the leaves and blow his mouth. Suddenly, the beasts around his body became violent again, and rushed towards the rest of his life. Let's bloom. Yi Fuxian smiled, and the rest of his life was destined for glory. At this moment, the rest of his life was covered with a wild golden light, as if it was covered with a layer of the god of war armor. He saw a loud flying eagle flying towards him, and his huge hand stretched out forward. Out, the sharp claws that were torn straight into the flying eagle curved straight up like the claws of the opponent. With a click, the sharp eagle's sharp claws were caught by the palm of its lifetime. The next moment, the body of the flying eagle was thrown with one hand for the rest of its life, and slammed forward, and a roar came out, and several monsters rushed to be crushed by the troops. Everyone froze, and the monster behind became wilder, but seeing the steps of the rest of his life stepping forward, Fenghuatai seemed to tremble at it. At this moment, he gave off an illusion, as if this burly person was a humanoid monster. I saw him punching a monster running towards him, and the ruthless monster shattered and flew out. The rest of his life walked on the Fenghua platform, his arms outstretched, and he caught a red-winged tiger that had been annihilated. The red-winged tiger wanted to bite his neck and was held by his hand. Mouth, then tear. Is this still human? People's hearts trembled, and they found that the monster behind them no longer obeyed Yundai's instructions and did not dare to move forward. Yundai is a beast trainer, not a beast trainer, and cannot with absolute control. The monster will no longer obey his summons under absolute fear. Yundi's face also changed tilde. He removed the leaves of his lips and then released his soul. He is a wild lion, like the king of beasts. His body walks like a monster as fast as a monkey. His body flies straight into the sky when approaching the rest of his life, agile like a tiger spotted, and jumped over the rest of his head like lightning. Then, on his body, the ghost of the Lion King was attached to his palm. Making the indestructible claws, terrifying power, bent towards the end of the rest of his life. The rest of his life was not slow, his body moved like a ghost, and then his palm slid into the sky, colliding head-on with Yundi's claws. The powerful force will shake Yundi to fly. When the situation went away, the rest of his life escaped in a volley like lightning, and his palm caught Yundi's arm. The next moment, they saw Yundai's body slam into the ground for the rest of his life, and Fenghuatai shuddered again. Around Fenghuatai, there was silence. When his whole body stood up straight and his eyes fell on Tianzi, the hearts of many people trembled. It seems that the Fenghua party is coming from all over the country. The character named with the highest voice is invincible. The same territory has been destroyed. Chapter 112, Fighting Together. After just one battle, the rest of his life was in the limelight. Dust, fate, literary studies. Among those who have the highest voice on the Fenghua list, Yundi is the only one in the world of 7-star glory, because his beast-taming talent is very strong, and the monsters under the French phase can be controlled. The impact, and he is also a very powerful magician of destiny. In the first battle he played, he summoned many monsters to attack, and it was dazzling, but in the end, all of this was only to trigger the existence of others. Everyone remembers thank you for the rest of my life, and of course, very cheap. Ken Chia's heart trembled slightly. It turned out to be Kangai Yuan's first test, but the strength he showed was no small test. Is this his true strength? It just exploded. The void beast's face was slightly embarrassed. They had high hopes for Yundi, but in the first battle, they were crushed, and they were crushed in the same realm. Based on this battle alone, they understood that it was impossible for that name to appear on Feng Hua's list, as there were more prominent existences in the same environment than him. At this moment, the Emperor sat on the throne, seeing the others' eyes staring at him as if observing him, without the admiration as it should be, more like trying to see what kind of person he is. Demon devil, it is completely different. Tianzi whispered, naturally will not be angry because of the eyes of his life, he is the Emperor, when there is the temperament of the Emperor. Feng Huayan's goal was to find the most evil ancestor of the Kangyi country, so he ordered him to die. No one can do anything to show the sharp people to Feng Huayan how to hold it. When the surrounding princes and nobles heard the Emperor's words, they understood that the Emperor cherished the rest of his life, and the harsh behavior he displayed in the rest of his life was born for war. Only Yi Fuxian did not feel surprised. In the same world, how could anyone beat the rest of life? All my life, Yundi, pass. The parents at Kangai Yuan announced that only the signatures bearing their names were left, and the signatures of all others were accepted. This was expected by everyone, even though Yundi was defeated. But don't stop there. The rest of his life raised a step, then looked towards the void, and when he walked on Feng Huatai, his body flew like a sharp sword in the sky. Wind. Yi Fuxian stretched out his hand, and the wind swept over the body of the rest of the life. With the power of this wind, the body of the remaining life fell on the black wind carving. Many people looked at the direction of the black wind carving, and they also saw Yi Fuxian and the flower narration covered by the light gauze. The faces of these three people are a little strange, no one knows, and they don't know where they came from. The Dean kept mentioning names, the battle was still going on, and many amazing characters were still appearing, but collisions like the rest of his life and Yundi never happened again. As the battle continued, Yi Fuxian finally heard his name, and after his name, it turned out to be Waji's name. This took him by surprise, and the two of them got into a battle. The two looked at each other and smiled, then the wind wrapped around their bodies and headed downwards. They landed on the Feng Hua platform, like a pair of immortals, and instantly attracted a lot of attention, as they were with the rest of their lives. And the rest of my life is just too amazing. In the void, Qin Zong's direction, Bai Qiu's eyes fell on Yi Fuxian. They had seen him in Kangai Yuan 3 days ago, and let the other party be his own piano boy, but he was rejected. Now it seems that he seems to have confidence. Since the rest of his life is so strong, Yi Fuxian's strength will not be weak. Lin Yueya, who has the first beauty of the Kangai kingdom, also looked at Yi Fuxian and Hua Jiu, and was also a little curious. On that day, Yi Fuxian said something to Hua Jiu, and he heard it. But, both in terms of body and temperament are very good, the appearance is definitely beautiful, but if you want to say that you are better than her, Lin Yueya can't believe it. But the eyes of the beast sect are not very friendly, it seems because of the rest of their lives, and it just so happens that there are 2 disciples of the beast sect in this battle. The Emperor's Iron Order, the complaints at the Feng Hua party cannot be personally replied to, however, there is no problem in completing the Feng Hua party. Yi Fuxian and Hua Jiu came to a place, and then saw Yi Fuxian sitting down. Can Sol appeared, and then fell in front of Yi Fuxian. Hua Jiu stood beside him quietly, like this. The fight doesn't matter. The piano sounded, and the melodious piano sound came from the soul of the piano in front of Yi Fuxian. It felt very comfortable, not like the piano master used in battle. I saw 2 beast sect disciples walking towards Yi Fuxian and Hua Jiu. One of them took the flute in his hand and played it in his mouth. There was a strange sound, and there was a great monster riot in the void. The owners of those monsters are very depressed, and today their mounts are not ready for the beast sect. However, despite the unrest, the monsters did not leave. In front of the person playing the flute, there is an aura of gathering energy, hidden in the monster, savagely slaughtered towards Yi Fuxian and Hua Ziyu, and the summoner's method is similar, but it is not real and is as strong as the monster drawn by the summoner. Wajiayu's palm stretched out, and an invisible mental storm suddenly appeared, making the aura monster unable to move forward. Then he looked at his palm gently, and the aura monster disappeared into an aura. You fight, I help. Yi Fuxian whispered. Feng Huayan requires excellent performance to advance, so it is unrealistic to avoid war, and Yi Fuxian can't appear alone. In this case, there would be nothing to explain. Okay. Hua Jiu nodded slightly, and then the sound of the piano continued to enter the ears, but it was not an attacking piano sound spell, but an amplification piano sound spell. At this moment, Hua Jiu felt like she was stronger. A few minutes. She walked over to Yi Fuxian's body, and her beautiful eyes flashed a dazzling light. Then, there was an extraordinary aura surrounding her body. Boom. The 2 powerful beasts only felt their bodies stiffen, and a powerful force seemed to fall directly onto their bodies, sending their bodies flying without their control. In this battlefield, the other people who were preparing to fight saw this scene and saw it. They looked at the beast sect firmly, and then they saw the vines that were transformed by the aura of the wood property and tumbling towards the two, and picked them up. The body flew into the air. Bring 'em both first. Someone whispered on the Fenghua platform. Everyone's eyes were on Yi Fuxian and Hua Jiu. Then, a terrifying breath exploded violently towards the two of them. The strong surrounded him vaguely. Yi Fuxian and Hua Jiu didn't feel it. I saw that Yi Fuxian was still playing the piano. The wood aura around Hua Jiu's body became increasingly violent, but she turned into a storm. The next moment, Qianteng Suo's spell was released and beside him, endless vines shot out in all directions. Qianteng Suo is a relatively powerful control system spell among wood attribute spells, so many people will practice it, but different people's strengths will definitely be different. Wajiayu's spiritual power is inherently terrifying. With his strong mental strength, he can control the aura of all attributes, and naturally he can cast any attribute spells. Many people looking ahead saw the vines roll up, flash wildly, or use spells and combat skills to cut them down. However, under the combined efforts of Yi Fuxian and Hua Jiu, Qianteng Suo was very strong. Many people were instantly rolled up and then thrown into the distance. However, there were also strong characters who rushed forward with melee combat and wanted to fight in close quarters. In the face of two psychic magicians, long-range combat was definitely a disaster. When the two strong men approached, Wajiayu stretched out a pair of slender hands at the same time, and for a moment the two felt that their bodies could not move. Hua Jiu's body slowly floated in the air, as dazzling as a fairy. The two powerful practitioners found it difficult to escape this invisible force. A crackling sound came and the vines rolled towards their bodies, and they were still driven away. I don't want to hurt people, you confess yourself. Hua Jiu said softly, floating around the body in the void, and a sharp metal storm bloomed, faintly gathering into swords and spears, surrounding her body. The swirling motion made everyone understand that Wajiayu did not bloom his true strength at all, otherwise he would use various offensive and powerful spells after he released Chitoshu, which would be a disaster for many. This leaves many people feeling hopeless. With the cooperation of Master Qin Yin and Master of the Aggressive Spirit Department, they didn't show much strength at all. His mental strength seems to be very strong. Many people in the void looked at Hua Jiu silently, and Yi Fuxian's piano sound magic increased the strength of his mental strength, so there was an immediate situation. People gradually gave up fighting and left, looking a bit decadent. They had asked themselves that they were all geniuses and belonged to the strongest in the same world, but now they knew what it meant to be beyond the heavens. Yi Fuxian, Hua Jiu said the Kangai Yuan elders. Although Yi Fuxian did not fight, but only with the ability to improve the sound of other people's piano, it is worth looking forward to his follow-up. Behave. Yi Fuxian slightly leaned towards Tianzi, and then left with Hua Ji. You must enter Qinzong. At this time, a voice came from the sky. Yi Fuxian looked up, and saw that the speaker was Bai Qiu. I had some misunderstandings about you before, because I wanted to make you my pianist. In fact, you are better than I thought. You can't just be a pianist. If you enter Qinzong, a year or two later, it will not always be weaker than I am now. Bai Qiu said. Many people looked at him. It seems that Yi Fuxian's piano-voiced magic gave Bai Qiu a genius, and wanted to become Qinzong Gali people. In addition, he said that Yi Fuxian was not always weaker than he is now in a year or two, and he had a high evaluation of Yi Fuxian. P.S. The 9th again, I saw someone repeatedly subscribe to the previous chapter. I apologize without a trace, the website made V. And the subscription is now very good. Thank you to all the brothers who supported, but it's a bit compared to the monthly pass Fate subscription. Damn, brother, see if there's a guaranteed no trace monthly pass. Chapter 113, Evening Party. Bai Qiu is now a phonics and sound expert in the country of law. Yi Fuxian is only 7 stars in a state of glory. If he could surpass the current Bai Qiu in a year or two, it would be extremely rare. Dustin Martial Arts Qin Yin Master, of course, must train in Qinzong. Yi Fuxian looked at Bai Qiu with a strange look. This was the second time he had invited himself. The first time made himself a piano boy. The second time he was more optimistic about her, but he still had a sense of superiority in his tone. Yes, in a year or two, it is not necessarily weaker than he is now. It took a year or two. Moreover, you have to join Qinzong. He just wanted to refuse but listened in a harsh voice. Can you be quiet? Everyone turned their eyes and saw the rest of their lives standing behind the black wind that carved the void. His eyes looked at Bai Qiu indifferently. The last time he let Yi Fuxian be his piano, the rest of his life was very unhappy. I can't bear to show that advantage anymore. In other people's eyes, maybe this is Bai Qiu's confession of Yi Fuxian, which is based on the psychology that they all think that Bai Qiu is superior to Yi Fuxian, but the rest of his life is just the opposite of them. For the rest of his life, Bai Qiu's words were true. You are ashamed of Fuxian, and this is undoubtedly a matter that he cares about. Many people looked at the rest of life in shock, but Qinzong's gaze was a little unsightly. Baiqiu was now the representative figure of their lineage. Qinzong's disciples walked outside, and Baiqiu represented Qinzong's face. In their opinion, Baiqiu valued Yu Fuxian and invited him to join Qinzong, but he was severely scolded for the rest of his life. Although you are not weak and strong, but you don't know how to talk like this. Baiqiu said nothing. A Qinzong disciple beside him spoke coldly. Go out. The word went out for the rest of his life, and spoke coldly, much more lazy. Yu Qinzong's eyes stared at the rest of his life, so arrogant and rude. This fellow speaks loudly like he does when he fights. Everyone saw the rest of his life, but the people of Qinzong, and the talented disciple Baiqiu of Qinzongfa, had no face at all. Baiqiu also looked at the rest of his life, then smiled, and looked at Yu Fuxian. I asked myself for good intentions, if you are not interested, then, but at the Fenghua party, in front of Tianzi, your friend is a bit rude. Yu Fuxian's pupils were slightly closed, and these hidden thoughts in Baiqiu's discourse were actually referring to the emperor being disrespectful for the rest of his life. Looking at Baiqiu, Yu Fuxian smiled and said, Can you be quiet? Words equal the rest of life. Mo said that because of him he was angry for the rest of his life, even if there were mistakes in the rest of his life, he would not have to doubt his position when facing outsiders, not to mention that he himself was somewhat displeased with Baiqiu. In the vast space, many people looked at Yu Fuxian. These people are very interesting. Baiqiu and Qinzong's pupils were blocked by Yu Fuxian's words. Although Baiqiu still had a smile on his face, everyone could see that the smile was awkward. See you at the Fenghua banquet, Baiqiu said coldly, without saying much. Yu Fuxian didn't care. He and Wajiayu flew in the wind, their bodies flew in the air, and then fell on the black wind carving. Yu Fuxian glared at the rest of his life. This guy, do you understand harsh words? For the rest of his life, he grinned nonchalantly. The battle continued, and people continued to fight, and many genius characters appeared. With the passage of time, the Battle of the 7-Star Glory World ended, followed by the Battle of the Stronger World, the 8-Star Glory World and the 9-Star Glory World. Fierce. More and more Tianzhou figures appeared. Regardless of talent, if the country is high, it is definitely easier to be noticed by the emperor at the Fenghua banquet. Hai Fuxian, they have watched the battle quietly behind black wind carving. The underpass secret party was indeed a party for Kang Yeguo's national talent. Some of the characters are really enchanting. He noticed that someone from the 8-Star Glory realm was a woman with a beautiful face and a pure and moving face, even compared to Lin Yueya, who had the reputation of being the first beauty of the Kangai kingdom. Her face was not inferior. The reason why Yu Fuxian paid attention to her was because the woman's profession was summoning, and she was an engraver. During the battle, both talents were revealed in the painting at the same time. Her name is Hua Jixin. When he appeared, he attracted a lot of attention. Lots of people talking and seeming very famous. Of course, the appearance of Lin Yueya, the first beauty of the Kangai kingdom, attracted more attention from her because of the higher value of her face. Apart from the two of them, there were several noble figures who had appeared, but they were not as attractive as the two peerless beauties. When the battle in the level of glory ended, it was almost dusk, and then the battle of the people in the country of law ended. Obviously, there are not as many people in the glory level as there are in the glory country, only a few hundred people, and there are more of them in the first level country. The battle of the French phase is much more violent than the glory level. When the many French phases are blooming, everyone just feels a little dazzled, especially the multiplayer chaos. The scenes are stunning, and every battle is interesting. Yu Fuxian also paid more attention to the French battle, and he also paid attention to Yuqiu's battle. Yuqiu was so proud that he actually had such a proud capital. When he played the piano to one side during the battle, no one could approach him until he became the most dazzling existence in the war he participated in. Apart from Baiqiu, there were several disciples in Kangai Academy who were extremely strong. There was also a talented young man known as Xiao Wangai. His sword skills opened Yu Fuxian's eyes to remember the name of the other party. Yi Wuchen, by his last name. Finally, when all the battles were lonely, and more than 10,000 people participated in today's Fenghua party, only more than 200 people passed, and they could continue to participate in the next battle. At this time, night fell, and before he knew it, it was already dark, but the lights outside the palace still shone on the Fenghua Dai room. I saw the emperor stand up from the throne, and they all suddenly rose. I saw an emperor step out, smiled, and said, Your Majesty is having a banquet in the palace today. Anyone who passes by will enter the palace with His Majesty. People nodded gently, because it is called the Fenghua banquet. There is a natural feast. In addition to fighting, talented people who really perform well can enjoy dinner with His Majesty, which is equivalent to heaven's calling. Therefore, in this round, only geniuses were selected, and 100 was selected, leaving only 200 people for 10,000 people. Yu Fuxian, they walked backwards, came to Hua Fengliu, and said, Teacher, Let's go to the palace first, and then the hotel after the banquet. Go. Hua Fengliu nodded with a smile, but he wasn't worried about anything. Kang Yeguo was enlightened. The Fenghua party is held to make use of talent. He naturally wasn't worried about what would happen to Yi Fuxian in the palace. Yi Fuxian turned around and the three of them headed to the Tianzi Palace to take the shuttle car first, and someone led the others. Past Fenghuatai is the Royal Palace Fenghua Gate, followed by the Straight Palace Avenue. The architecture in the Royal Palace is self-sufficient, and people walk along the road to the Royal Garden. The environment is beautiful and the atmosphere is elegant. Emperor Tianzi was already waiting here, and everyone came forward to pay their respects. You don't have to be restricted, just treat it as a family meal, sit as you please. Tianzi said with a smile. Then he and the queen sat alone. Talents each find their seat. Each seat is independent. Yi Fuxian and lifelong Wajiayu sat alone at a table. Today's Fenghua banquet is being held. Everyone present is Tianzhao, my ancestor of the Kangai kingdom, who is the future of my Kangai kingdom, and my queen and I respect you. Tianzi toasts, and everyone toasts. After the Fenghua party is over, I know that you may be dissatisfied with the result, but being able to come to this step has proven your superiority. Even if you can't keep moving forward tomorrow, you shouldn't be discouraged. Tianzi continued. Speaking, everyone present is a younger junior, so naturally it is inconvenient to chat with Tianzi, and he can only listen to what Tianzi has to say. Tianzi said a few more words and smiled. I know I can't be happy here. Well, let a few little people talk to you. I will go first. No one is allowed to leave too early today, otherwise just don't look at me. After speaking, he left with a smile at the queen, but left the two princes and two princesses here. Everyone present today might indeed be the future big man of the Kangyi country. It was also the purpose of this party to meet the previous prince and princess. Well, Dad and Dad are gone, you can let go. A prince said with a smile. Everyone smiled, and the atmosphere changed accordingly. The two princes and princesses were the same age as them, both they were the younger generation, so they didn't need to be controlled. After all, they are also talented and evil people, and they are not as good as ordinary people about the kingdom. This is the first time I have seen Yueyao Fairy so close. It seems really not the prince praised Lin Yueyao. I am the first beauty in Kangai country, especially the wave of fame. Someone echoed with a smile. It's just that others call him indiscriminately. Your Highness is too famous, Lin Yueyao replied with a smile. In this state, how can there be no piano sound to help? A soft voice came out, and a princess spoke. He looked at Baiqiu and Yi Fuxian. Both of them were very handsome and handsome. Yushu faced the wind. Qin Zong's music is not good in this atmosphere. I want to let the princess disappoint. Baiqiu smiled. However, at the Fenghua feast today, Yi Fuxian played, and the interpretation of the flowers danced, complementing each other. Like the fairy family, today. Chance, why don't you let you see the glory? Above the banquet, many people looked at Yi Fuxian and Hua Jiu with a smile. Today, at the Fenghua banquet, these three people suddenly appeared, which was indeed very dazzling. Besides, Yi Fuxian and Hua Ziyu were clearly a couple. Fenghua banquet cooperation is very pleasing to the eye. Chapter 114, Dancing. Baiqiu looked at Yi Fuxian with a smile, but soon he couldn't laugh. I saw the three Yi Fuxian quietly enjoying the gourmet food without looking at him. The banquet at the Tianzi house is good, you can eat more wine and delicious food, fairy. Yi Fuxian smiled at Hua Jiu. Hua Jiu smiled, and the rest of her life looked at the two with a displeased expression. The smile on Baiqiu's face gradually solidified. Was this immediately ignored? The young princess Yi Lingxi is about the age of Yi Fuxian. She looks at Yi Fuxian's handsome face, and her lips seem to want to laugh. Is this person too bad? He naturally understood that Baiqiu's words were meant to humiliate Yi Fuxian, but what could be more embarrassing than ignoring him? Especially as the identity of Baiqiu, it is even more embarrassing. Everyone's eyes are also fixed. Some people are watching lively. Some people think that Baiqiu is begging for trouble. After all, in today's Fenghua party, Shuang's comfort has been at odds. So difficult. Yi Fuxian naturally will not give him face, but Yi Fuxian responded in a special way, or did not respond at all. Of course, some people think that Yi Fuxian is a bit arrogant. After all, Baiqiu was a person in the country of law and a representative of Qin Zong. When he was invited during the day, he was insinuated with Yi Fuxian for the rest of his life. Ignored. What's more, the princess was the first to be invited. If someone asks a question, you have to answer it whether you want to or not. At this time, a voice came out, and the speaker was sitting at the place where the Kangai Academy disciples were. There are many talents in Kangai Academy. 8 of them appeared at today's banquet. Ken Chia, whom Yi Fuxian knew, was also there. Of course, the person who spoke was not Ken Chia, but a more talented person, Yu Jiang. Seeing Yi Fuxian as one of the unhappy people, however, Baiqiu was a good person with him. Yi Fuxian put down his wine glass, slowly turned his eyes, and looked at Kangai Academy. Yu Jiang had seen it at Kangai Academy. During the academy's first test, Ken Chia pointed at Yu Jiang and Baiqiu and said to them that they were all geniuses with very high voices in this party. Yi Fuxian looked directly at Yu Jiang, and saw that Yu Jiang was holding a wine glass in his hand and drinking lightly on his lips, but his eyes were also looking at Yi Fuxian. In his opinion, although Yi Fuxian's 3 talents are extraordinary, but also too proud, nothing in his eyes. Do you know me? Yi Fuxian had an ironic smile on his face. We are naturally unfamiliar, and we don't want to get used to you. Yu Jiang smiled with a drop of the wine glass. However, the princess asked to give a word. It's fine, I just said it casually. Yi Lingxi saw that the atmosphere was not right and smiled. The beauty smiled like a spring breeze, and the shameful atmosphere seemed to fade a little. The princess's style is admirable, but some people think they are right. The emperor set up a banquet and was covered with a veil, which is too arrogant. My first beauty, Lin Yueya, is not the same. Yu Jiang also said obviously, this refers to the interpretation of flowers. Father Wang said earlier that today is like a family banquet, no need to hold back, no need to be strong. At this time, Yu Danshan's prince saw that Yu Jiang still refused to let go, and he also spoke. These people are proud and proud opponents, and they are the opponents of the follow-up party. Usually, some conflicts break out easily, but they test their ability to deal with contingencies. When Yi Fuxian saw that the prince and princess came out to talk, of course they couldn't lose face too much, just by seeing her smile at the princess Yi Lingxi, and said, I'm really good at palace dance, and I'm willing to help the princess. After all, Yi Fuxian walked alone and sat cross-legged in front of Taolan after the party. As for Baiqiu's accompaniment dance and Yu Jiang's mask, it was naturally ignored. He gave the face of the princess, and did he need to give the face of Baiqiu and Yu Jiang? Kan's soul appeared, and the sound of melodious music was introduced into people's ears, and they were instantly replaced with a musical atmosphere. The costume of the costume was a palace dance that was exquisite, and naturally suited to the current atmosphere of the environment. With the sound of the piano, the atmosphere of the banquet seemed to become more natural and intertwined. Many people's moods are unconsciously affected. As soon as this song came out, I felt that the song I heard in the palace was unbearable. Yi Danshan praised, it seems that something is missing. This is dance music, and less natural is beauty. Baiqiu laughed, looking at Hua Jiu again, it's just that beauty doesn't value face. The rest of his life standing, his face was very cold, this Baiqiu took it all. Qin Yin also seems to be affected, a little more indifferent. Seeing this situation, Princess Yi Lingxi laughed. If you don't like it, I will be ugly. When everyone heard Yi Lingxi's words, their eyes flashed, and there was a touch of color. The principal is dancing in private. The princess can't. Yu Jiang of Kangai Academy said, what is the identity and dance of the princess for Yi Fuxian? I'll speak freely, the princess doesn't need to take it seriously, Baiqiu began. When it comes to Xingji, like music, when someone dances, what can I do? Yi Lingxi said and came forward to Yi Fuxian, his clothes fluttered and his sleeves danced. Extraordinary. Yi Danshan saw people lose their eyes, but praised with a smile. Everyone looked at the dancing daughter Yi Lingxi and Yi Fuxian Fu Qin. Under the moonlight, the peach blossom was like a scroll. If today's banquet comes out, it can be a beautiful conversation. Someone said with a smile, many people nodded, before thinking that Princess Yi Lingxi had a role in dancing, but at this moment, if you think about it, it is not a grace, it is indeed a beautiful talk. It is desirable to add color to this scene. Yi Danshan smiled and looked at the painting. The painting smiled earnestly, and then he got up and walked towards Taolan, then he used his hand to write, and suddenly the aura gathered into a spirit bird. In general, it does not appear to be possessed by humans. It is beautiful. Lin Yueya couldn't help but praise, Yi Fuxian is handsome and extraordinary. When he plays the piano, he seems to have several different rays of light on his body. At this moment, Baiqiu and Yu Jiang's faces were slightly unnatural. They saw that Yi Fuxian was a little uncomfortable, which prompted him to play the piano, but he didn't expect to finish a beautiful conversation, especially Baiqiu. He thought if he changed it at this time, he played the piano there must be a beautiful sight. At the end of the song, everyone seems to be drunk and can't get away. Yi Fuxian's soul disappeared. Yi Lingxi looked at him with a beautiful look in her beautiful eyes, and smiled, this song is very good. The princess dance is also very beautiful. Yi Fuxian smiled. I'll let you teach me this song when I have the chance. Yi Lingxi said with a smile, then walked back into the crowd, and Hua Jixin nodded slightly to Yi Fuxian. Yi Fuxian returned the gift with a smile, then walked back to the position. He looked around the crowd, and saw Baiqiu and Yu Jiang looking a bit cold in his eyes. The corner of his mouth couldn't help but smile uncontrollably. Even though he performed well at the Fenghua banquet, both in the rest of his life and in the interpretation of flowers, Bai Qiu and Yu Jiang still dared to embarrass themselves, perhaps because they felt that their realm was low, and they always had a sense of superiority in front of them. Hope that after the Fenghua feast, their sense of superiority will remain. Your honor! Yi Fuxian shouted, and everyone's eyes fell on him. Yi Fuxian said with a smile, there is an elder in the family waiting for us to come back. Today we have already enjoyed the song and we are going. Okay. Yi Danshan nodded with a smile and didn't stop. If Yi Fuxian stayed, there might be a speech conflict next time. See you tomorrow. Yi Lingxi also smiled. Yi Fuxian nodded slightly, then said, see you at Fenghuatai. I don't know if it was said to the princess or to someone else. After saying that, the three turned around and left together. Yi Fuxian was sent out of the palace. Under the moonlight, the three of them set foot on the black wind carving. Dance princess, are you happy? Hua Jiu smiled and looked at Yi Fuxian. I will play a song for you after you return, and you will be even more beautiful when the fairies come to dance. Yi Fuxian laughed. Okay. Hua Jiu smiled sweetly, but Yi Fuxian had an unknown feeling when he saw her smile. Ellipsis ellipsis ellipsis. In the morning of the next day, many people gathered in front of Fenghua Terrace. Yesterday's Fenghua banquet was held. There were only 200 people left among the more than 10,000 strong men of the entire Kangai kingdom, but those who remained were even more hopeful. When Yi Fuxian arrived, many people were already there. Qinzong's people, Kangyi Academy, Beast Sex Powerhouse, Main Force, and nobles were all present. As if he saw something, Yi Fuxian turned his eyes and saw Qinzong smiling at Bai Qiu with a smile on his face, but he naturally understood what that smile meant. Eyes turned, Yi Fuxian ignored Bai Qiu, and the three continued to move forward, approaching Fenghuatai, preparing for the next battle. In the direction of the palace, the carriage came with great power, the Queen of Heaven came with the prince and princess, and then sat down in their respective positions. Yi Danshan and Yi Lingxi were naturally there. I saw Yi Lingxi's beautiful eyes staring at the crowd, and when she saw Yi Fuxian, she smiled and nodded at him. Yi Fuxian smiled and returned the gift, then looked at Hua Jiu and trembled and laughed. Li Li, Li Li. It was impressive to return to the inn last night tilde tilde. I don't mind, Ji said with a smile. Well, I know. Yi Fuxian nodded in response to Hua Jiu's gentle smile, and he almost believed it. At this point, everyone stood up to salute the emperor, but saw the emperor waving. No need to be polite, go ahead. The Kangai Academy elders went to the Fenghua core and placed the remaining bookmarks with people's names in a row. Further, some of these people's names will shine in the Fenghua core, and the Kangai kingdom will become famous. Chapter 115. I look forward. The elders of Kangai Academy sorted out the markers, then pushed one of the rows of markers forward, raised their heads and looked at the empty people, and said, Fenghua Yan is a little different today and yesterday, and then I called out the name. People will be all mages in martial arts in the realm of glory. Once you set foot in Fenghuatai, you will show your strength as much as possible. Even if you lose, you can enter the next round. Everyone naturally understood what he meant, which meant that in the realm of glory, the best martial arts practitioners had to be selected and judged by combining strength and talent. After that, the elders began to shout their names on the marker, and the numbers headed towards Fenghuatai. The name of the remaining life is naturally registered. Yi Fuxian sent it to the Fenghua platform with a wind spell. Of the more than 200 people, there are 40 people who are major in the martial arts of the glory world. Among them, the 8-star glory world and the 5-star glory world are the most, and the 6-star glory world and the 7-star glory world suffer greatly. After the rest of his life on stage, many people glanced at him. Obviously he was considered a dangerous person. You fight first. The rest of his life turned to the side of Fenghuatai, then stood there quietly, a move that had nothing to do with him. Everyone looked at him silently. Isn't that arrogant? Those who were able to survive today are all extraordinary talents. Even though his remaining life force has exploded, there are still several 9-star evil spirit stars on the Fenghua platform at this time. Why is he so arrogant and confident? Yi Fuxian blinked, then slapped his head, and muttered, my fault. In the space above Fenghuatai, everyone is silently staring at the rest of the life. Even on the throne of Tianzi, Yi Tianzi smiled at the rest of life. This little guy is really crazy. Of course, if the rest of the life is really strong, then it is not crazy, he is looking forward to it. Yun Zhao was a disciple of Kangai Academy. In fact, he is a destiny wizard, but he is majoring in martial arts, because his soul is more foreign. He was a pair of golden wings, which gave him the attributes of golden wind. Condensing the wings and magical aspects, so instead of choosing to take the wizard route, but majoring in martial arts, coupled with spells. Yun Zhao of Kangyi Academy is also the one with a higher voice in Fenghua Bang, but there are 2 more outstanding French-level masters in Kangyi Academy, so the light is suppressed. Apart from Yun Zhao, the beast sect madman was also there. He is also a destiny mage, but his soul is that of a demon ape and his strength explodes, so he also chooses to major in martial arts. Yun Zhao and Wu Quengren were both in the 9-star glory realm. With them, the rest of the 7-star glory world showed yesterday's explosive power, but it didn't seem so overbearing. After all, the opponents he faced yesterday were all 7-star glory realms. Opponent. Okay. Wu Quengren stepped out and walked straight for the rest of his life, which made many people blink. In yesterday's battle, the rest of his life ruthlessly hit the genius disciple Yun Dai, the madman of today. Was this to take revenge for the rest of his life? The soul was released, and a terrible monster ape appeared behind the madman. He clenched his fists. His body was immediately covered with an extremely hard rock. Every step out gave a sense of extreme pressure. That madman will have to fight head-on with the rest of his life. Everyone stared at that vicious figure for the rest of his life. Some people look forward to the rest of their lives. What is this person's soul? With the explosive power of their remaining lives, they naturally wouldn't think that the rest of their lives were soulless. But he was disappointed. For the rest of his life, he did not let go of his soul, and watched the madman walk towards himself. He was surrounded by a terrifying dark golden luster, like a war god standing there. Feng Huatai sent out a loud roar. The madman was like a demon ape, raising his huge palm and slapping for the rest of his life. He had to see how strong his remaining strength was. With the fist remaining his life, the dark golden fist was like a sharp spike that grew upside down. When he stepped on it, Feng Huatai seemed to tremble. Then, his fist lashed out at the madman. The movements are not fancy, simple, direct and loud. With a loud bang, the two collided together, and for a moment, there seemed to be a terrifying airflow around their bodies, and they whistled. Their bodies stopped for a moment, and the demon apes roared loudly, but seeing that the fists from the rest of their lives continued to advance, pierced the opponent's palms, and hit the chest of the madman, a crackling sound came out, and the defensive spell broke out directly, and the madman snorted. With a sound, the steps continued, but he still supported his body without shaking. Bang! The rest of his life stepped out of the trampled ground, his hand gripped it at the same time, the madman's arm hit him for the rest of his life, but he saw one of his palms grasping the other's hand directly, stiffly blocking when he came down, his other hand was placed on the other's shoulder. In the next moment, everyone saw the rest of the life grabbing Wu Quengren's body, and slamming it down. Wu Quengren was lifted with a volley, and then threw Feng Huatai stiffly. This. Many people were shocked when they saw this scene, and relying on this strength, what about the arrogance? As a result, the next fight of Feng Huatai felt a bit strange. All his life, he stood with his eyes closed and rested, and others fought fiercely, and nothing interfered with the rest of his life. Until then, Bai Zhao, who was only at Kangai Academy, was standing on the Feng Hua platform. Behind Bai Zhao, golden wings appeared, extremely beautiful, standing in the void, facing the rest of his life. He naturally noticed that Feng Huatai for the rest of his life was sent by Yi Fuxian with a wind attribute spell, which means that the rest of his life has a weakness, and his strength can destroy everything. The madman from the 9-star glory realm was in direct competition with him. Everyone saw the end. This person was born with divine power. A row of golden spears appeared in the void, and then fell towards the rest of the life on the Feng Hua platform. The life remnant arm exploded forward, and a golden light curtain suddenly appeared, blocking all the spears. The golden lightning flashed. Bai Zuo's body instantly left for the rest of his life, and saw that the body of the rest of his life showed the shape of an arc, and then dashed towards the front. The speed was so extreme that everyone was stunned. What is this person sending? Crazy, walking on the Feng Hua platform. The next moment, they saw the right leg of the remnant life slam down on Feng Huatai, their bodies faster than lightning, and rushed straight at Bai Zhao, who shot at him. Bai Zhao is done. Everyone can only have such thoughts, it is too fast. The next moment there is an explosive sound in the void. Although Bai Zuosheng's wings are good in speed, but they can't escape at all. The crowd saw his body flying upside down, and was knocked into the air by the aftermath of the aftermath. His life, and his height even exceeds the height of the throne of heaven. Yes. When his whole body landed on the Feng Hua platform, a loud sound came out, and many eyes were on him, speechless. This. Ken Chia looked at the pitiful condition of Bai Zuo's brother, Bai Zhao, whose talent was more outstanding than his, and took a deeper look at the rest of his life. Her heart is a bit of a mess. Can it really be that strong? The Kangai Academy elders also watched the rest of his life speechless, hesitated for a moment, and said, "The rest of my life, pass." There was only one person for the rest of his life, and there was no other name, not even the name Bai Zhao in Kangai Academy. Such an outstanding martial arts practitioner for the rest of his life. If the king wants to be named, a noble martial arts practitioner is enough for him, and others can no longer compete with him. At this time, everyone felt that for the rest of their lives, they could be named by the king and be on the list. The rest of his life remained, followed by the battle of the Master Realm of Glory. The 7 attribute masters and several spiritual masters were called onto the stage, and chaotic words were also registered. However, he did not mention Yi Fuxian by name. Although Master Qin Yin is also a spiritual master, it is somewhat different. He noticed that some Master Qin Zong and Yun Dai, beast trainers, might not mention their names, maybe. It is divided into a third category for combat. In the second fight, there were also many evildoers, but the two women were the most dazzling. Lin Yueyao and Hua Jiyu. On the Fenghua platform, two peerless women are standing opposite each other. Although Waji's face is not clear, his temperament and eyes will not deceive. Hua Jiyu and Hua Jixin are probably the closest characters to Lin Yueyao, someone said in the void. Well, the talent is extraordinary, and the face must also be beautiful. Someone nodded. Too bad Kang Yeguo already has Lin Yueyao, and no one can take away the light. Your talent is very good. Lin Yueyao smiled and looked at Hua Jiyu. If your realm is stronger, it doesn't matter. Wajiayu looked at each other with a calm look, and there was a whistling aura around his body. Lin Yueyao, Hua Jiyu, pass. At this moment, the elders of Kangai Academy shouted, leaving everyone dumbfounded and the two of them leaving together. This is not to let them face each other. Hua Ziyu's talent is extraordinary, but his realm is at a disadvantage. Perhaps the seniors from Kangai Academy intended to give him a chance to make an appearance, and let him not collide with Lin Yueyao first. Lin Yueyao smiled and said, I wonder what you look like. As he said, his body flickered towards the void, and Hua Jiyu also left. Furthermore, it was the final battle of the Glory World, and the elders of Kangai Academy shouted their names. Qin Yin Master Qin Zong, Beast Tamer Yun Dai, Yi Fuxian, and summoners drew consciousness to Fenghua Dai. Those who carried out strange practices were arranged in a duel. When Yi Fuxian stepped into Fenghua Dai I immediately discovered that Qin Zong Masters Qin Zong had bad eyes at the banquet last night. He and Bai Qiu clashed. Now Qin Zong's people meet him in Fenghua Dai. Naturally you're welcome, Master Qin Yin of the Seven-Star Kingdom. Qin Zong's strong man smiled and saw Qin Zong's person smiling at Yi Fuxian. Master Qin Yin is very broad and deep. In the Kangai Kingdom, my Master Qin Zong is the greatest. Although the end of this battle is disastrous, as Qin Yin Master, you can teach Qin Yin spell Qin Zong, and you will not stop there. Yi Fuxian froze, looked at each other, and then smiled brightly, said, I can see Qin Zong's phonics and genius. I am looking forward to it. Chapter 116, Received. Yi Fuxian is not lying, he is really looking forward to it. As for what to look forward to, he only knows in his heart. He can even laugh. Seeing Yi Fuxian's smile, everyone secretly said that this man seemed very confident. However, this time he did not spend his time with Xiu fighting him. Yi Fuxian had to face it alone. As Master Qin Yin, facing Master Qin Zong in Qin Zong High Realm, everyone does not know where Yi Fuxian's spirit came from. Before that, Bai Qiu valued Yi Fuxian's talent in Qin Tao and invited him to join Qin Zong, but he only valued his talent. There is a gap in this world. Even if Qin Zong's talent is not as good as his talent at the piano, he is still stable. Suppressing it, after all, Qin Zong's piano voice magic is indeed orthodox in the Kangai Kingdom. There are not many people on the Fenghua platform. The battle between martial arts and mages had ended earlier. Now the rest are practicing freaks. There are 7 Qin sect masters, 3 powerful beast sects, and a painting of conscience. Summoner, and Yi Fuxian. In the last battle, the number of mage duels was the largest. After all, there were 7 series of mages and spiritual mages. 12 strong people stand in the 4 positions of the Fenghua Dai recipe, namely Qin Zong people, Beast people, Painting Jixin, and Yi Fuxian. As they stood in their respective positions, they discovered that not only Qin Zong's people were hostile to Yi Fuxian, but also the Beast sect. They destroyed the leftover Yundi yesterday, and today they expelled Wu Quengren from Fenghua Dai. This account could not be counted for the rest of his life, so he had to find Yi Fuxian to clear it up. Painting Jixin feeling this subtle scene, his footsteps slowly lifted, walked to Yi Fuxian's side, looked at Yi Fuxian, and said softly, are we going to join hands? Yi Fuxian glanced at the beautiful and touching paintings beside him. Yesterday they worked together. It was just Yi Fuxian playing, Yi Lingxi's daughter dancing, painting and painting. But today, he fought. Okay. Yi Fuxian smiled and nodded, as if he felt something. His gaze glanced at the black wind in the void, and naturally he saw a pair of beautiful smiling eyes staring at him. He's a little sad. Beautiful women invite each other, can't fault it. Thinking about last night's experience, Yi Fuxian was a little annoyed at this moment. How could he half jump and leave? Thinking of the sexy and seductive moves of the elf last night, Yi Fuxian is very depressed and ruthless, and he will have to fight stupid people in the future. Why is it necessary to know the heart? We don't want to deal with the heart. The youth Qin Zong who was talking to Yi Fuxian said again. Her name was Su Mu, but she was a pianist mage with a 9-star noble realm. Moreover, among the juniors, he had the best talent. It's okay, you have to fight, you don't need to be polite. Hua Jixin's voice was soft, making people feel weak, and she couldn't help but resist. That's the case, then. I'm offended. Su Mu didn't say much. He painted an 8-star noble world, although he looked weak, but would he be weak as a banquet character at this time? If he were to fight alone, even Su Mu would not have the confidence to win a painting lower than his realm. Keen Soul's Sparkle appeared, and the harp and harp masters played the harp at the same time. In an instant, there are two kinds of songs on the Fenghua platform. Yi Fuxian played one kind, and Qin Zong's people played another. Jixin's painting squatted on the ground, and then painted on the ground with a pen in hand. He painted very seriously. When he focused on the painting, he seemed to have a unique charm. At the same time, Beast Sect Yundi took out leaves and played in his mouth. Others, some whistles, some flutes, the sound comes out a little strange. The painting speed is very fast, much faster than the Zhou Mu summoner Yi Fuxian met before, and the painting is more realistic and the aura is richer. Immediately, there were birds flying from the ground, and some birds surrounded him, and some birds flew to Yi Fuxian, apparently to protect Yi Fuxian. This scene really made Yi Fuxian cry and laugh. When did he need a woman to protect him? I don't have to. Yi Fuxian smiled and glanced at the painting next to him, and between the soles of the piano, the sound of crickets came out, like a battlefield. It's fine, didn't you join? Hua Jixin looked at him with a smile, then continued to retract his head, while at the same time, the monsters continued to fly towards Fenghuatai in the air, violently towards Ji Jixin and Yi Fuxian. The body rushed away. The birds around Jixin's painting attacked the monster, and he continued to paint. Everything outside seemed to have nothing to do with him. In Yi Fuxian's eyes, a strange light was released. At this moment, he lowered his head, and no one could see his eyes and pupils as if they contained a terrible storm. A strange spiritual power was infused into the sound of the piano. When the ruthless monster attacked, these strange spiritual imprints flowed into the monster's mind along with the sound of the piano. A strange sight appeared. When the monsters approached Yi Fuxian, they stopped directly, and then the ruthless monster became docile, lying on the ground quietly, as if listening to his piano. Many people were astonished. Yi Fuxian's harp was so exciting that it was like a battlefield, but why did he give up on the monster? Naturally, they wouldn't know that Yi Fuxian had two soul-type souls. Besides Master Qin Yin, he is also an animal master, not an animal trainer. The painting knows the beautiful heart and eyes, and then he continues to paint, knowing that Yi Fuxian is fine. He will recall the birds he painted for himself, and deal with the beasts. Su Mu and Qin Zong's pupils have been playing quietly. Although what happened on the Fenghua stage was a bit strange, but this did not prevent them from playing. The music gradually became high, and the atmosphere was similar to the piano played by Yi Fuxian. Can bring people to the battlefield image, then, this battlefield, seems to have arrows bursting into the sky, straight from Yi Fuxian, arrows released from the rope of extraordinary power, like a spirit that can pierce people. Only Su Mu was attacked this time. Even though others were playing, it seemed insulting to join forces attacking Yi Fuxian with a piano sound spell. Yi Fuxian played alone. On the battlefield, there were soldiers holding shields to block arrows from attacking. Around the Fenghua terrace, people listened to piano music, and they developed a very beautiful feeling, as if they were on a battlefield, and the picture in front of them was the confrontation between the two armies. The songs played by Yi Fuxian, the general ordered. The piano music played by Su Mu and others killed the wolves, and among the sounds of the piano, they all revealed killing intent on the battlefield. Su Mu Chink is very aggressive, with all the arrows coming out, and wants to kill everything. Yi Fuxian Qin Qiu is like a general sitting in the city, as stable as Mount Tai, letting you attack hard. I don't move. Su Mu became more and more aggressive. After the arrows were launched, the soldiers lined up and the spears pierced through everything. Chink Yi Fuxian was still holding on. The soldiers came to block and cover the water. The general's orders are firm and the hearts of the soldiers are solid. No matter how severe Su Mu's attack was, she couldn't always break Yi Fuxian's mental defense. The two were deadlocked, and Su Mu's piano music seemed to be a little restless. In the atmosphere of the piano music, thousands of sergeants fought and charged wildly. Yi Fuxian remained motionless like a mountain until Su Mu Chink became more and more restless. Finally, Chink Yi Fuxian began to change, from calm to instantaneous, as if it had accumulated a long momentum, and broke out. The general ordered that thousands of drums beat, and the sound of killing was so high that thousands of soldiers came out of the army, and the momentum was like a rainbow. For a moment, in the sunken mood of everyone, Su Mu seemed to be defeated like a mountain, and the momentum was completely really defeated. On the Fenghua platform, a violent piano storm swept over everything and pressed towards Su Mu, and he was about to roll over towards Su Mu's body. But at this time, Qin Zong's other pupils also shot, and their vibrations seemed to resonate with Su Mu's vibrations, erupting instantly. At this moment, the coercion that Chink broke through the wolf was shocking, and the suppressed momentum instantly reversed. The faces of many people have changed, and they can naturally see that it is no longer Su Mu alone against Yi Fuxian, but Qin Zong's disciples joining forces. Su Mu, a high-level piano master, was defeated by Yi Fuxian. How useful is a person? Yi Fuxian's mouth made a mockery, only to see his body slowly standing up, and Keen Soul floating in front of him along with his body. Yi Fuxian lifted his steps and stepped forward, but Qin Yin was still, getting louder, and continuing to push forward. Everyone was surprised to see that Yi Fuxian took the initiative step by step towards the direction of Qin Zong's disciples. With each step he took, the momentum seemed to be getting stronger by a point, and the general ordered to take the lead. Qin Zong's people frantically plucked the strings with their fingers, trying to withstand the force of the storm, but they let Yi Fuxian gather together. The general command of the Qinyan magical spell, the stronger the momentum, the more he gathered together for so long, he has endured. Until the general order, the general situation becomes irreversible, but on the contrary, Su Mujiu can't attack, the potential continues to weaken. Yi Fuxian, how did he give him a chance to breathe? Everyone saw Yi Fuxian step by step in front of Qin Zong's disciples, how arrogant, there was nothing in his eyes. Well, a Qin Zong disciple from the 8-star glory world could not support spat out blood and fell. The first person fell, the sound of the piano became more chaotic, and the momentum became more chaotic, then the second person, the third person. In a row fell, until only Sumu was still struggling to support him. Finally, with a wave of Yi Fuxian's palm, it seemed that the general finally ordered to clean up the mess. The storm passed and Sumu's spirit was very broken. He even spit out blood, and his momentum immediately became very decadent. Qin Yin stopped suddenly, Yi Fuxian's soul disappeared. He stood in front of Qin Zong's disciples, smiled, and said lightly, Qin Zong's spells and Qin Zong's disciples are really well known and studied. Chapter 117, Humiliated. Ekali. Qin Zong's pupils can be crushed and go to Qin Zong. What should he learn? Thinking of this, many people glanced at Bai Qiu. If Yi Fuxian had a chance to fight with Bai Qiu would definitely take revenge on him fiercely to remove the embarrassment of this battle. Not far from Yi Fuxian, the battle between Hua Jixin and the Beast sect had ended. The weak and beautiful figure still stood there quietly. The three beasts, including Yun Dai, were defeated. Hua Jixin and Yun Dai were both known to be strong contestants of Fenghubang. They are both very talented, but Hua Jixin's realm is higher than Yun Dai's, so everyone is not too surprised, just because the two Yundi battles have been defeated. It feels weird. In the first war, he met monsters for the rest of his life, and in the second war, he encountered painting consciousness, and he could only say that the beast genius was really unlucky. Yi Fuxian, paint tofu heart, pass. The elders of Kangai Academy announced the end, and the Yundi talented youth, who came out early, was sighing. A genius like Yundi is not even a candidate for the Tianzi call list. Yi Fuxian and Hua Jixin smiled at each other, then left their respective Fenghuatai. The Battle of the World of Glory ended, and only 5 people passed by to get a candidate for the name of the emperor. These 5 people were Yu Sheng, Lin Yueyao, Hua Ziyu, Hua Jixin, and Yi Fuxian. Among them, there were 3 beauties. In addition, people also noticed that the rest of life, Yi Fuxian, Hua Jiayu, they are together. Yi Fuxian and Hua Jiayu seem to be lovers, and the relationship between Yu Sheng and Yi Fuxian seems to be very good, like brothers. In general, for the rest of his life, Yi Fuxian directly irritated Bai Qiu and silenced him. Now the 3 of them have qualified for the Emperor's summons. It's hard for everyone to notice them. The king city of the Kangai kingdom should not have these 3 figures, otherwise, with their talents, they should have long been noticed. So, where did they come from, the Kangai kingdom? These 3 geniuses seem to be a bit mysterious, and many people can't help but be curious about them. But soon, they put this curiosity aside, and the battle between the French realms began. There are only 5 people in the glory world who are qualified to be named by the Emperor. The realm of the French phase should be more than that. After all, being able to enter the realm of the French phase represented the gift of spiritual practice. The disputes in the realm of law are extremely fierce, but moreover, the light of some people is getting brighter. For example, Xiao Wangai Yi Wuchen, arrogant and indifferent, with a sword in his hand. No one can stop him, not to mention, Yi Wuchen has not released his soul, otherwise he will be even more terrible. Some genius figures in the state of law even difficult to stop him with a sword. Apart from Yi Wuchen, Kangai Academy Zhao Qianfen, Yu Jiang, and Bai Qiu Qin Zong were all famous figures, and their performance was not bad. They are all very dazzling, and they are strong candidates for the king list. In addition to these people, a powerful beast, 2 children from the family, and 3 evil characters from far away from Kangai City were also chosen, showing a very interesting performance. There are 5 people in the glory world, 10 people in the French world, and a total of 15 strong people who have won the nomination of the king list. 10 of them can be named and included in the list. The possibilities are great, but very difficult. Among these 15 people, Yi Fuxian, Hua Jiayu, and the rest of the life are the lowest. All of them are 7-star glory worlds, which makes people a little speechless. If they are not outstanding enough, it is impossible. Of the 3, the rest of his life is the most optimistic person on the list. The name of the king is not only based on strength, but also measures talent. Of the 15 people, the martial arts talent for the rest of life is eye-catching and is an alternative. Such people are easy to like. Follow. Hua Jiu and Yi Fuxian were disliked, because the competitor of Hua Jiu might be Lin Yueya. As the first beauty of the Kangai kingdom, Lin Yueya was extraordinary in her appearance and talent. The light is suppressed by the flowers. It's hard to name the anaphor. The reason why Yi Fuxian is not optimistic is also very simple. Although his talent is extraordinary, he is a piano magician. In the legal field, there is Baiqiu, and as a piano magician, he tends to be suppressed by Baiqiu. In this way, Tianzi, it is impossible to name 2 Kinyan masters into the Fenghua list. Yi Fuxian was definitely more likely to get out of Baiqiu. Moreover, before Yi Fuxian humiliated Qin Zong's disciple, Baiqiu would definitely target him. The 6 battles did not take much time. Yi Tianzi glanced at the sky, then looked around at the crowd with a smile and said, shortly after the battle, please rest for a while, and by the way, think about the conditions that will be mentioned, maybe you will use them in the afternoon. Many people laughed. Tianzi named the top 3 and was able to put forward conditions to Tianzi. How could everyone miss such an opportunity and couldn't help but fight for it? However, 15 people and 10 people are in the top position. The probability is very high, but it will be more difficult to enter the top 3. Even the 15 chosen geniuses, few of them had absolute confidence. When Yi Tianzi finished speaking, he left by car, but the vast space crowd did not leave. Not too long before noon, they were willing to wait here. Today, who can the emperor name on the list of winners? Who can enter the top 3 and shine brightly? A lot of people were talking, and the room above became very noisy. Yi Fuxian, they came to Hua and Nandu Wenyan. Teacher, your wounds will heal soon. Yi Fuxian smiled at Hua, as if the first 3 were for him. Healing the guru has always been his wish. The teacher's death made the idea even stronger, so he decided to participate without hesitation after hearing that Kang Yeguo was holding a Fenghua banquet. The opportunity to offer conditions to Tianzi is only to heal my wounds, and it is not so cost-effective. Hua looked at his students in front of him. Of course, he did not doubt Yi Fuxian's ability. The key is how much talent is exposed. Just showing Master Lucan Yin's 1 talent, he has already obtained the qualification of a candidate for the roll call. If he showed less talent, Fenghua's roster would be stabilized. In the first 3, you need to look at the current situation. Well, it's not very cost-effective, but who made you lucky and accepted such a good disciple? Yi Fuxian said. Where's your bottom line? Hua's face was dark and moving just now, and he fell silent as soon as he heard her words. I will tell the truth. Yi Fuxian said naturally. Fuxian is right. With such a disciple, you can be satisfied. Nandu Wenyan said with a smile. It's still good being a mother-in-law. Yi Fuxian smiled brightly at Nandu Wenyan. Hua glanced at his wife and glanced at Hua Xiyu next to Yi Fuxian, feeling very sad. At this time, many people came to this side, as if running towards them. Yi Fuxian turned his gaze to them, and then he heard someone say, Yi Fuxian, are you considering entering the ancestral path? Yi Fuxian turned his eyes and looked at the people. There were several parties coming, and they all seemed to want to dig people up. No need, I haven't thought about it. Yi Fuxian smiled and shook his head. Thank you for your kindness. He is a bit strange. Why don't these people invite the rest of his life, but only him? Okay. Everyone smiled and nodded, looking at the rest of his life, and someone smiled. For the rest of your life, congratulations in advance. If your majesty cherishes it, don't miss the opportunity. The rest of his life staring at other people, his face was dull, and without any indication, the newcomer also left. Does this mean he was insulted? I thought that Yi Fuxian was a little depressed, and I was still proud that someone had invited him, but I didn't expect that it turned out that he couldn't make it to the list. There's a lot of discussion around. Many people discuss the Fenghubang candidate. The rest of their lives are hot, and Yi Fuxian's name seems to be mentioned by several people. Yi Fuxian glared at the rest of his life. The rest of his life showed innocent eyes. Blame him. Chapter 118, Battle 1. Start high-speed text sync readings on your phone as time passed. It was getting closer to noon. The vast space around Fenghuatai, with countless numbers, is discussing Fenghubang. Soon, the Fenghua banquet will enter the most critical moment, and Tianzi will decide on the candidate for Fenghua. Everyone was looking forward to everything that would happen. Xiao Wangai, Yi Wuchen's resplendent age, extraordinary swordsmanship, Zhao Qianfen, the evil character in Kangai Academy, has no peerless talent. The two are in a dual law state. How great is their collision? Wang Jiashanjiao Wang Yu, he is chasing Lin Yueya, the first beauty of the Kangai kingdom. Today is the Fenghua party. How bright she is, can she win a beauty? The rest of his life showed invincible moves in the field of glory. If he and Lin Yueya met, who was strong and who was weak? Will the 3 beauties of glory realm, Lin Yueya, Waxington and Wajiayu, will they face each other? Yi Fuxian defeated Qin Zong's Big Seven firmly, and furthermore, he would likely face Bai Qiu's revenge. With Yi Fuxian's 7-star glory world, can he be a threat to Bai Qiu? Would Bai Qiu be so humiliated? Can the Tianzhou character who came from outside King City shake the genius of King Kangai King City? All of this will be announced soon. As time passed, 15 people all came to Fenghuadai. Yi Fuxian looked around the crowd and glanced at Bai Qiu and Kangai Academy genius Yu Jiang. He had not forgotten what happened at the royal banquet yesterday. The princes and nobles next to the emperor's throne returned to their respective positions, looked at the 15 characters of Tianzhou, and looked forward to it. Master Wang, the dustless talent is unmatched. There must be him in the top 3 on this list. At this time, a family figure looked at Yi Wangai and smiled. Your family's Wang Yu talent is also extraordinary, and there may be an opportunity. Yi Wangai smiled. Old man Wang smiled, glanced at a young man next to Fenghua Terrace, and smiled. This kid has a sloppy practice and doesn't know where to put the whole day. At this time, there is still chatter. At this time, Wang Yu of the Wang family was standing next to Lin Yueya, the first beauty of the Kangai kingdom, and was talking about something. The two seemed to be chatting, attracting countless jealous eyes. Perhaps only a person like Wang Yu was qualified for Lin Yueya to approach. The main point of the Wang family is right and wrong. If you can chase the girl in the Lin house, I am afraid that you will laugh at the big teeth. Someone next said with a smile. Old man Wang also laughed. If Wang Yu could really catch up to Lin Yueya, that would be a wonderful thing. As they chatted, Tianzi and his team returned, sat on the throne, glanced at the sun in the void, and smiled and said, "Get ready to start." An old man at Kangai Academy went to Fenghua Terrace. This time, he did not pick up the bookmarks with the names of people, and there was only one parent. His eyes looked at the 15 characters of Tianzhou, and he said, "Listen clearly." Now everyone nodded. 15 eyes, all fell on the elders of Kangai Academy. In the last round of the fight, there are no rules. If you want to perform, you set